few minutes and visit with you today. So I left off talking about red flags on cars. Specifically, we kind of were getting into like online cars and how we do online car business and all that kind of good stuff. But meanwhile, this video, along with any of the ones I'm coming on in the morning doing the talks with, I have them all. But I'm gonna try by this afternoon, put them all in the same playlist. It's this just like the title of this car, the go to the used car, starting a used car lot. I just figure that's an easy way to categorize, put them all in the same category so they're easily found. As always, if you like and subscribe, that really helps our video channel out. But anyway, so on to the red flags. We were kind of talking about dealing with the buyers and dealing with the sellers and all this kind of craziness. So let me jump in there, kind of where I left off. And if my memory serves me correctly, we were talking about, just the vibe you're picking up from the seller. And one of those, okay, so some of the main things that I'm looking at when I'm dealing with a seller specifically, I'm really picking up the body language, right? And I'm asking questions and I'm searching for information. I mean, I am digging information. I'm digging deep. I and I never try to be, and I love these conversations we get to have because I just get to talk to you just like you're sitting in front of me. So I never really try to be offensive or too invasive, but in my mind I am trying to be invasive, right? I'm being friendly, joking, but I'm really paying attention to what this person is or isn't talking about. And so some of the things that I would be saying in the conversation, because you can't just go up and say, "Hey, show me your car, thanks, I'll pay you this," and walk away, right? There's so much information to be gained from the second you introduce yourself to the second you make the first offer. And so some of the things I like to ask is, "Hey, how does this thing drive at 55? Does it got any kind of shimmies or anything like that?" And the lady will say, "Well, it drives good. When's the last time has it had an alignment? Is it something I need to do maintenance wise?" They'll probably be like, 2 years ago I did this, I did that. If they're like, "I don't know, I don't," and you keep hearing the "I don't knows," "I don't know," "I don't know," "I don't know," it doesn't mean you can't buy the car. It just means that you probably need to prepare for external work that if you have a good buyer, you would pass on a few things that you'd be worried about. I mean, I'm sorry, a good seller. You wouldn't be as stringent with your money. 'Cause it's not always about getting the cheapest price. Sometimes it's a better deal, a lot of times, is a higher quality. Sorry, getting blown up here. By the way, if anybody wants just kidding. I don't need to be wholesaling a 14 Nissan right now. It just came across the thing. But anyway, long story short, anything that you're wanting to find out, you want that seller to you want them to kind of voluntarily tell you. Because like I was saying, a good deal isn't necessarily like a super cheap price. A super cheap price, it's okay. That's kind of to protect yourself. If you really want to just beat someone down to nothing, that is you basically saying you don't have any confidence in the car. If you've got confidence in the person, and I'll always say this to people, "Sir, I'm going to pay you this price, which is a few hundred more than I normally probably would spend, but I'm buying you, not this car." Because, obviously you're a professional, give them some type of compliment if there's a reason to, and let them know that you're buying them. And guess what you're going to find out? They're going to tell you everything. They're going to try to be so honest with you. Because most people, a lot of us get this in our mind that, everybody's out to screw us, but a lot of people really aren't out to screw you. A lot of people are really just selling their cars if you're buying it from that individual. And, they have all this dread and angst about selling the car because, maybe they don't want to disclose the scratch behind the rear driver's light or, maybe something, I don't know, just something stupid that gets on their nerves about the car, the TPMS light, whatever. And so in their mind, it's this huge deal, but in your mind, it may be very well bunch of nothing. So you might be like, "Yeah, I understand it needs a sensor, it's $50, but to them, it's the whole world, right?" And if you'll be kind to these people and you will give them a little bit of respect, offer them $100, 200 more than you probably would. But that honesty, man, that they're gonna and that raw vibe, and you'll pick it up. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you're dealing with people. Um, some shady dude that's got like 15 cars and four pieces of them, and you roll up on him, and he's got four boats and a three-legged dog. I'm probably I'm looking at his cars as salvage right off the bat because I'm looking at who I'm buying from. I'm not saying you couldn't buy somebody, that you were kind of like, this seems a little iffy. It doesn't if it doesn't seem like someone that's been driving that car that's selling it, I really got a problem with that. So I'm just like, if you don't know the car, I'm gonna figure that out. Major red flag. Some of the other, well, I was thinking about this because I drove home yesterday from Motion City, and I was thinking, there is some other cool little things that I don't even realize that I do. When I'm looking at tires, I kind of have a category in my head. Like when I look at cars, I start at the top and I kind of work my way down. So when I first walk up to a car, most people would be like, "Oh, that's a nice looking car." But because I'm so used to getting burned and my mind is trained to find things that are wrong, um, I immediately make eye contact with the consumer, seller, or buyer. And then the next thing I do is I look at the top roof skin of the car, hood skin. I'm looking for hail damage right off the bat. That's the first thing you got to do, and that costs money on a car. You can resell them. Doesn't mean you can't resell them. It just means you can't pay as much as one that doesn't have it, if that makes sense. Um, the next thing that I do, and if it does have hail damage, private individual, I'm like, I'll ask what happened just to make sure it wasn't in a flood or something. Um, but the next thing I kind of do, if everything passes, let's just say it passes the smell test, everything's cool. I will be like, hey, then I'm looking at the body panels, right? I don't know if anybody watching this is like, if they understand orange peel, but you can get some orange peel from the factory, and that would be if you understand paint. Okay, so if you ever understand like wet sanding, is you making the paint even, which is more reflective of light. Well, the less even the paint is, the less reflective the light is, which means someone has probably painted the car and they probably done it cheap and they didn't do the fit and polish on the end, which is where they cut the paint down, which to you in your mind, if you see orange peel, so remember, I'm looking at the roof, now I'm looking at the body lines, and I'm wondering, hey, has this car got some orange peel? And I'm kind of catching it at all angles, right? I'm looking down the rear quarters, both quarters. I go to the front, look down the front, because sometimes you look at the back and you don't catch something on the fender or vice versa. I always look at the door lines, fender lines. Fenders don't bother me that much because, a lot of damage happens to fenders. But if I see rear quarter paintwork, I really start thinking I need to see some information um, on, the I need to start seeing some information like from the VIN inspection and things like that. Like I'm really looking to dive a little deeper. These are things that tell you. Another thing too, as you're looking at the car, you don't have to mention this to the guy that you're buying it from. It's just me and you talking. We're just shooting the crap right now. When you pop open most door panels, you get used to the type cars you buy. But a lot of them have the VIN numbers inside the fender wells, inside the trunk lids, inside the doors. And so you're looking for those original factory markings. At least I am, because like I said, right off the bat, if it's missing a VIN number. And then when you're looking inside where like the trunk opens, and usually if they blend paint, there's a lot of overage there, or doors, there's overage. Only the best of the best really do that correctly. But there's usually signs because people just don't pay that kind of money for just a regular old, transportation vehicle. They don't pay for high dollar restorations on them. Now, and so usually that's and that now we also and I have one of these, but I haven't used it. But I have a way to I have a little pen I run over it, and it checks the thickness of the paint. But that's only for really late model cars for new car dealers. For what you're dealing with, it doesn't matter, and they're too expensive for the average guy. You're out here just hustling. You ain't got time for all that. But you can just get used to the orange peel. The orange peel is I mean, it is such an eye opener. Okay, so if we pass the hail, if we've passed the hail test and we've passed the orange peel test, or even if we haven't, it doesn't matter. We're still moving on because every car is a winner and every car is a loser. You just got to have the right information that tells you how much to pay for it, right? Because you don't want to buy a car with orange peel in the rear quarter and hail damage as if nothing's wrong with it. Think you got a good deal, but you lost 2 grand. But if you're paying attention and you buy it for 2,500 back, you still made 1,000. Um, then the next thing I probably let's see some of the other stuff I would think about. So I'm looking at hail damage. I'm looking at the body lines, the orange peel. And then as I move to the rear, I'll always start in the rear of the vehicle. I put my hand, up under it. And I'm looking up under the suspension because usually right there or under the trunk, somewhere right as those frame rails start, you can really get an idea of the rust situation. And you're looking for any kind of markers. If a car's been under salt or exposed to a lot of salt, you'll start seeing it in the hangers right there. And then go around to the sides, and you want to look up underneath the rockers on every car out there because those inline frames can be rotted, and you won't even freaking know it, dude. And if you buy a rotted one, you're just pounded. You're pounding sand. I mean, it's just a loss. Unless, of course, once again, you can buy any car for the right price and you can pay a welder to fix it, and that's a different story. But I'm just assuming that you don't have a MIG welder and you don't know how to cut and put metal back in. So let's just go with that. I'd pass on it unless you have the ability to replace rockers and stuff. Um, Moving around to the front, the next thing I'm looking for underneath the front of the car. So now we've looked underneath the back, and we took a look at the exhaust system. We've looked at how the hangers are hanging. We've went around to the side rockers. We've looked up underneath it. We're looking for rot. And I always put my hand up there just to see if I'm gonna see what's coming out. I mean, I might have a whole handful of rust fall out, and then I know what I'm dealing with, right? So now it's not a car, now it's a rust bucket. But then I go around to the front, and before I even pop the hood, I go ahead and just look underneath it. And this is what I'm looking for. You can't find everything wrong with it, but here's just a few things to look at. Look at each of the front wheels, and you're looking at the boots, and you're looking for any obvious damage. If it looks like crap under there, then you probably know you got some front end stuff just to be paying attention to. And you can also usually see the brake disc in the front from that angle, and it's really easy, and you kind of get a visual of that. If not, a lot of wheels you can see it from the front. I mean, from the outside of the car too. But if you can't, it's a good time to look at it. And then, of course, look a little past the engine, kind of toward the firewall. Make sure you don't have any fluid running down off that back firewall, because if you do, that's a sign of a rack problem. And they're once again fixable. It's not the end of the world. But it's a pain in the ass. I'm not gonna lie. So you got to pay a guy to do it. There's a bunch of crap to it. So and you're not gonna fix a leaking power steering rack, no matter what they're selling you in a bottle. Maybe one out of a million will fix, but that thing's gonna leak, and you're gonna have to fix it if you want to treat somebody right when you're reselling the car. Now, as I take a glance at that, I may not even say anything to the person that's selling me to it, but then I'm looking at the bottom of the engine, and the first place I'm looking is where the transmission uh, meets the motor. And because I'm looking for a rear main seals are pricey to fix. And if you have a slow drip or any kind of wearing there, that means the transmission's got to be removed. You've got to replace that rear main. Now, I have seen Lucas work on that, and you can try it every time you have one. If it's a small leak, usually Lucas will fix it. But you have to figure out, taking $300 or $400 to replace it. Even though it's a $10 seal, you got to jerk the tranny and put it back in. So it can be a pain in the ass for a rear main seal. And then you can see the next thing that's kind of important is if you look at the oil, if you see a bunch of oil under the oil pan, you've got to try to isolate where that's coming from, like how high up it is. Because if it's in the front, that's going to be a crank seal. And guess what? Crank seals can make you a ton of money because they don't cost shit to fix. All you do is pull off that's if you have the ability to do it. They don't cost very much, pretty easy to do. You just pull off the harmonic balancer and then put the seal in. They're usually less than $10. No problem. We can deal with a front main seal, rear main seal, problem. Valve cover gaskets, although can be tedious and a pain in the ass, not that big a deal. On some GMs, like the oil sending units will be leaking. Ford Escape, same thing. So you got to just kind of figure out where that oil leak's coming from. And this is like your job when you're under the car, because each thing that's going on, like you're not going to be able to fix. If you fix one leak and you have three more, like you have four problems, right? You don't have two problems or three problems. You have four problems you're fixing on the engine. So it's not a 1 day job. Now it's a 4 day job or whatever. You know what I mean? It was dependent on your mechanical abilities and what you have ability to fix. But all those things they come in and they're very, very important. And then as I start the car, another thing too that I find that I'm just sharing the stuff with you, probably won't do you any good, but whatever. Maybe it'll work for you. So as I start the car, I listen for chirps. If I hear a squeaking belt, not that it's always the case, but 9 times out of the 10, a squeaky belt to me means, or I take it, or what I'm looking for, the red flag, is a leaking water pump. Something's getting on that belt and contaminating it. And most times it's a little bit of radiator fluid, you know, uh, getting on the belt, and it gets on it, permeates it, and it squeaks. Not You can't hardly get rid of it. You can put some stuff on it sometimes, but the belt's not really the problem. The problem becomes the water pump. Now we got to figure out, you're out buying a car that's got a chirp, everything looks good, but then you look and you realize it's an internal water pump. So now you can't just fix a water pump. You've got to pull the engine, pull the front timing cover, put a new timing kit in it, and then replace the water pump. Now it's a problem. So a chirp to me is a big problem. Another thing too, I always look for identifying factors on whether or not a car's had the timing chain or timing belt replaced. By the way, I'd much rather buy a car with a timing belt than a timing chain with higher miles. And the reason is the belts cost shit and they're super fast and easy to do. And not that the chains are that bad, but chains got tensioners, blah blah blah. I wouldn't steer away from one. I would just understand that it costs a few more bucks to do the chains. I guess is probably a better way to put that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, is how long is the timing chain or belt usually. People will tell you lifetime on a timing chain. Yeah, right. So the lifetime on any timing chain is about 100,000 miles. Don't care who made it. Don't care what. After 100,000 miles, you're playing Russian roulette on the. They all have hydraulic tensioners. They all got the plastic guides inside of them. And guess what? Every time that engine makes a rotation, it wears on the internals of those timing chains and the guides, all that stuff is all wear materials. So if you're thinking I got a car with 180,000 miles, but it has a timing chain, doesn't need shit, guess what? Wrong answer. Might not need it right now, but that car will not last indefinitely. The engine will outlive the timing chain unless you don't change the timing chain, and then once it pops, it's bad. All right. Another little red flag I may or may not have would probably be the idle on a car. Um, Sometimes you can have a rough idle on a car, and it's got several variations. Like sometimes a rough idle could just be bad gas, but it also could be anything from a clogged cat converter to I bought a Kia not too long ago, and it was popping. And I told my boy, I was like, "Listen, man, we're gonna have to pull the head on that because it's gonna need the one of the intakes is busted." He's like, "Oh, bullshit." He says, "We'll buy this thing." I was like, "Well, no, number one." So anyway, I bought this thing. It was a 2012. I bought it for $400. This guy wanted 3 grand for it, thinking that it was a simple fix. Bring it in, pull the head, because we did a compression test. Guess what? Zero compression on cylinder one. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Got to pull the head, see what's wrong, and there was about a almost the size of half of a penny hole in the valve, right? And like I said, I think it was a 2012. So anytime you have a miss in a car, You really have to identify its miss. The other thing that I get a little nervous, and these are just red flags. If you're buying a really good deal that someone says, "Hey, I put a transmission in, I just did this work, now the car won't start." So a crank no start situation without a computer becomes scary because you could be dealing with a bad ECM, which is the computer, and now you have to be able to take the dealer, depends on what manufacturer it is, generally speaking, but you have to have them reprogram the computer for everything on that car. And then on top of that, whatever fried the computer to start with needs to be resolved as well. So we have a resolution for the problem. Could have used to been a crank sensor, but it could have been a short that caused the crank sensor. There's just a whole daisy chain of problems that can be a no crank, no start. And I'm not saying there's not any money in it. I'm just telling you that you can go down a really deep rabbit hole. Um, I have before because I'm greedy. So I mean, just call myself out here. Key cars that have ignition problems, those are usually pretty simple. You got to figure paying a locksmith to come out because you don't want to deal with the bullshit. I don't. So I just pay him, and I have a computer that'll do it, and I don't want to deal with the bullshit. So I pay a guy $300. He'll come cut anything, rewrite the programs, and done. So I'm not too worried about key issues. Some good things. So if a car starts and dies, these are a way to make a ton of money because usually that means you have an electric signal issue. No problem. We know the car runs. I'm in. But we don't know what's wrong with it. I'm double in because now I can buy it for nothing. And I'll see that's risk reward. To me, that's a good risk, you know. Um, Buying a car that you can throw a little, starter fluid in, bust off, which means it needs a fuel pump, or something's not engaging a signal like a crank signal or something like that. No problem. I got no problem with that. What else would be out there? I'm probably wearing you guys out, but um, in the end of the day and the end of time, there's tons of red flags and there's tons of white flags. Like I really realize, like I can probably go on for days and weeks and months over this. And that just comes from years of doing this. All right, how to find a good location reasonable. Thank you for responding to my question, Jamie. Learned a lot from you. Appreciate it. Hey, man, no, and that's what I'm trying to do with this is I'm just trying to get on here every day. I mean, not really formal, right? And this is about the time I take my lunch, and I'm like, shit, man, I can get on here and just hang out with my peeps. A few of you guys does good for the YouTube algorithm. Plus, it lets me keep in touch, and I can kind of keep relevant. Sharing information that might actually help you. All right, how to find good location reasonable. All right, man. So I don't know if you're still on here or not, and Fred wrote that. So I need to know. Hold on, let's see. Back. How to find a good location reasonable. Okay, so how to find a good location reasonable is well, it depends on what you're selling and who you're selling to, right? So if you're selling online, screw a location, dude. Get the cheapest thing that your money can buy. I mean, if you can get to a place that's $50 a month that you can make out of cardboard and hook a phone line to, then do it. Because your location will not make you a dime if you're selling online anyway. If you're depending on foot traffic, in other words, you're depending on people to come in on Saturdays and buy cars and you want to jump into that game, then you know, and it's almost crazy to say this, but the smartest thing to do is go get a used car lot that went out of business, right? I mean, I know that seems nuts because you're like, oh, well, it's obviously a sucky location. But for some reason in the car business, everybody gets used to coming to the same place to buy a car, and the location doesn't seem to matter. It's kind of like we could train like us as consumers. Forget us being car dealers. Us as consumers, like we know the mall's there, so whatever stores there just seems to be okay, right? So if you jump into the area of your city or town or where you live, your municipality, whatever, and that's where the car lots have been, even though, like, there's an empty lot. Go get that one. I mean, it costs you gotta pay to play. If you're counting on foot traffic, you gotta be with the other guys. See, they're drawing traffic, they're advertising, and you all kinda need to work together. See, I never thought of other dealers as enemies or anything like that. That's why I always worked with them because, um, if we are located between a Ford and Chevrolet store and we're able to carry Ford and Chevrolets, five-year old, then it just helps us because the guy can't afford it there. Hopefully, shops, with us, or vice versa. If you're buying import store, maybe you can concentrate on imports or whatever. Costs more money on rent. However, the traffic that they're paying for, you get for free. So I'd spend the money if I'm counting on foot traffic, if that's a big part of my lot. Now, if you're gonna jump up to and I would say anything medium and above would be what, 40, 50 cars. If you're at a 50, let's just say you stock 50 rides, and that means you have to have the ability to have 10 in the chute. There's X amount at the auction, there's X amount getting shops getting done. So you probably have an operation of 70 or 80 cars, 40 on display, maybe 50 on display. Then you kinda need a nicer lot that you're gonna spend some money on, but, at the same time, if I didn't have that and that wasn't my case, if you're smaller and you're just trying to survive, I'd go cheaper, man. That's just how I would roll it. Learning a lot. Okay, so I have a Lynn Bell, but Lynn put something on here, but I can't read what it is. I'm not sure what it is. I hope I didn't lose anybody on this thing. All right, so that's what I would say on lots, and that's what I say on some flags. You're talking about white flags. All right, Lynn. How do you check a? Hold on, let's see. Oh, okay. This is simple. Hey, maybe y'all guys can learn because if you're in the car business, this is going to happen to you if you run across a Chrysler. How do you check crank sensor position and camshaft sensor on a 0447 Magnum Ram 1500 pickup? All right. Well, there's a couple things you can do, but one of the first things you can do is try to spin the ignition over and see if you've got RPM. Okay. If you've got RPM, the chances are your crank sensor's working. Well, one of those years they switched and the cam sensor is kicking off the RPM gauge. Well, the RPM gauge not working is a dead problem right off the bat. It means one of your sensors is bad. The other thing is those sensors turn on fuel, right? So if they turn on fuel and fire, so you can see if you have no fire, right? All you got to do, you understand how to do that, right? You can just get a little spark tester. You can plug it in and see if you've got, if you just wanted to be simple. No RPM. All right, so yeah, one of your sensors is bad. I think it's the B sensor on oh 04, but I can't swear to that. I think that's the one that kicks the RPM signal. But you want to double check me on that. Um, okay, yeah, so you have a dead sensor, brother. Now on Chryslers, this is just me. I think it's ridiculous to just replace one. And it may cost a little extra money, but I put the Bosch sensors in or a name brand. You can try to go with you could try to go with the AutoZone ones or whatever. I think AutoZone actually uses Bosch. I can't remember. But anyway, regardless, wherever you get your sensor from, just make sure you get a good one because I can't tell you how many times we replace sensors because we're saving money because we're all about the cheap deal. Like I said, cheap's not always a good deal. Um, but as long as you get like a German made sensor, usually good because they're Daimler anyway. I wouldn't be that. But yeah, the no RPM, no fire, brother. You either got a cam sensor issue or you have a crank sensor issue. All three of them are very easy to change in case you need to. Does that help you out or no? Lynn, does that help you out? Okay. I guess I don't know if he's still there or not. All right, guys. Well, I kind of went over a little bit today, and that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, that's what it's about. I love it when you guys jump on here Hey, why don't we talk about, hey, Auto Buff? I'm gonna make you get on the Marduk. We're gonna talk about auctions. Um, I do like. He's talking about the ACV auctions. Man, there's tons of them out there. If you auctions are such a great resource if you use them correctly. This is just my opinion. See, I find all these resources very helpful. Like I think that the online sellers like Let Go and eBay and Facebook and Craigslist. I think all of those are massive resources, right? And every auction you get your hands on is a massive resource. So we don't need to get too focused on one thing, right? We kind of turn, oh, well, I made tons of money on eBay. I'll stay on eBay. Well, eBay goes up and down. Auction gets hot and cold. Facebook goes hot and cold. Multiple resources helps us out. So you just got to have a schedule during the day, like before I ever talk to you guys right now, I'm already looking at auction runs, and I'm looking at like four cars on eBay right now. I've got I don't know how many messages out on Facebook cars over the weekend. Why I'm in Ocean City, I'm not even here. I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. And just to give you an idea of probably the 30 people that I sent stuff to, only two or three have responded. So, don't give up. Go heavy, heavy action. You just got to produce more action, more activity. That's the secret in the car business because for I don't know what the hell it is, but people have I know I feel like everybody that watches this channel, I feel like if we all had a car and someone called us, we would call them back, right? I feel like that's a given. Like we would just sell, we would be in tune to someone calling, we would help sell them the car. But for some reason out there, um shit, people they will not respond to you when you're trying to buy cars. So that's a good reason. That's why it's such a good reason to keep, up with the auctions. Love your program. Watch you all the time. Good day to you. All right, cool, man. Cool, cool. All right, Lynn, that's cool. All right, man, and we'll do some chit chatting tomorrow about some auctions if you want to. If not, we'll at least go over it. If there's any other subjects you guys may want to talk about, like I said, I'm just chewing the fat with you guys. So I mean, I've been doing it a long time. I don't know if my information will help you or hurt you, but it won't hurt you. It'll definitely help you. And maybe you might glean one little piece of something I'm saying or something on the comments as people talking back and forth that may give you some insight on something you're having a problem with. But generally speaking, if it's car business related, anybody's been in the car business more than a couple years, we've all pretty much seen it, or we've either lost money because of it, made money because of it, seen it screw somebody, or we've seen a lot. Like, if you survive the car business for 24 months, you've seen more than most people see in 20 years. So by the time you're 30 years into this, not much is going to surprise you. So if we can help, that would be great. All right, man, you've helped more than you know. Hey, listen, Lynn, I've built I don't know how many 4.7 Chrysler engines, and I can tell you there's nothing to it. It's like taking candy from a baby. Um, it does a little bit of time, but they are actually good engines, except for sometimes you have to replace a head because they suck a valve. Actually, the somebody help me out here. The valve, the I can't think of it right now. I'm drawing a brain blank, but I got a whole series on that engine. And oh, the rocker falls off. It just falls off. And what happens is the valve seat drops. Hey, any of y'all that buy a Chrysler, y'all need to know this. If you buy the Jeep Liberty 3.7 or the 4.7 V8, you all need to know this. So there's something going on with the way they casted those. So the valve seat itself, what's happening is the valve seat will drop just a little bit. And what happens is it causes the rocker arm just to fall off. You'll be like, what the hell? So you'll be down from a six cylinder to five or eight to seven. So in the case that happens, the only way to really fix that is to replace the head. Not a big deal. The timing, everybody's like, oh my God, the timing, I can't, the timing, super easy. A lot of tricks on that. But you can make a ton of money on the 4.7s and 3.7s if you understand the problems of the 3.7s and 4.7s. That was my next question. Okay, cool. So the valve seats are a big deal in the 3.7s and 4.7s. That's why you see so many Jeep Liberties for nothing, and you'll see the Jeeps, the big Jeep full size, and the Actually, a lot of Jeeps have that 4.7 in it, the Commanders, all of them. So, or the 3.7. I don't think they're bad engines. That's just like a design fault. A lot of engines, the more you stay on my channel, the more I'll talk about just things that seem to reoccur continuously. Like with the with the Chevrolet with their little four-cylinder four banger. That is a great little motor. They've been putting it in I think it's the 2.2 or whatever it is. I think it's the 2.2. Those are great. They put them in the Cobalt, and I think they put them in the new Malibus. They have one real serious design flaw, and that's the tensioner. I mean, the tensioner will fail on that car. I have seen this for years and years. I don't know why they never fixed it, but it's a screw-in tensioner. It's like a 32 millimeter bolt. You can screw it out, screw it in, and bam, you're in business, man. Um, but for some reason, I don't know, it's like one of those weird things that's with that car. You can get into just different cars have like these different weird reoccurring things, and that's another way to make money in the car business is not specialized, but always keep an eye out for certain problems that you know the answers to. I always thought that was, cool. Like yeah, just anything that is reoccurring. You follow what I'm saying. All right, you guys, I'll let you go, man. My lunch break is pretty much over. I have to go make money because Jen will not stop spending it. I got to keep making it. Oh, and one last little announcement. I've been watching old Grant Cardone. And y'all, what? How about Uncle G? Y'all like Uncle G? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling Uncle G. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you know what? This dude is right. This dude is rolling around in a jet. This guy has two helicopters. God only knows how much real estate. I mean, this dude, I don't even know. Like, but I know he's legit because he came from the same area I came from. And I remember back in the day, the Cardone way, I remember all that shit. So, like, I know he's legit. Like, I know he's a legit dude. I've never met him, but like, I know enough guys that know him that knows he's legit. But man, that guy's preaching the gospel, man. That whole 10x thing, and really what he's doubling down on is activity, right? And it's kind of the same thing I'm preaching. Of course, he has a jet. I do not. I need to listen more to him. But he really has really got a point there about that activity, man. Activity, 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 man. If you can be so rich in the car business. I mean, you can make so much money. All you have to do, I mean, it's just as simple as how many cars can you buy and how many cars can you sell? I mean, that's the deal. Some people can do 50 in a weekend because they're using the auctions, and some people get hung up on one. And the more I listened to this guy, I mean, I was like, damn it, man, I am slacking. Uncle G, you got me feeling like I'm slacking. And also another thing too, I learned from that guy. That y'all in the car business, you need to understand this. It's so easy for me to go. I wouldn't say easy. I'm comfortable if I'm broke. If you said, "Hey, dude, you spent 200 grand on cars," I'm fine. I don't care. If I don't even have money for McDonald's, I could give a shit less. I don't care because I'm so comfortable that I can take my cars and turn them into money. That's all I'm trying to tell you. If I had $10 million and you told me it was all in cars, I'd probably feel better. I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna have $15 million when this is over. So I feel comfortable with trading cash for cars. But the truth is, cars don't make little cars, and we need to make ways to multiply our cash. And this was a mistake that I made early, early, early in the car business because I got used to making that money, man. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. You go out and you make you a 2 pounder, 3 pounder, you put the cash in your pocket. You living high on life, man. Who gives a shit? Then, you go broke, then you go make it again. And then we do that cycle so many times that we're just used to it, right? And then, over the years, you start stockpiling money, and eventually you'll get to where you own your own cars. And I remember in the beginning, it was like, hey, man, can you float me a car? Can I have one on the flip? And guys will be like, all right, man, you got to pay me in 2 weeks when the title come in. I'll be like, all right, dude, hold this check and I'm gonna go take this title down to the auction where I sold this car, and I'll bring you back to. I remember all that shit. That's how I started. But anymore, I wouldn't even dream of using a floor plan. Right? You use your own money. Screw it. Ain't no way making my money. But that's not success in the car business. I think that I think success in the car business is having an exit plan. But we can talk about that at a later day. And I just thought Grant was, I think he was on top of that because he was a car guy. Dude, he's brilliant, man. He moved it into real estate. I mean, dude, billion? Like with a B? Dude done dropped couple billies. Come on, man. I ain't seen no couple billies. Even the biggest dealers I work for ain't worth no billy, a billion. Nah, I'm gonna have to pay attention to Uncle G. So y'all, we gonna have to talk about him. So anybody that watches him, we need to have those conversations during lunch. All right, peace out, my brothers. I'm gonna throw you up a video today on something to do with a drive shaft. Oh, center carrier bearing. And then we have a wheel bearing. I guess it's all suspension for the next day or two. Meanwhile, see you tomorrow, man. We'll find something to talk about. It'll be fun, man. Y'all have a great day. Oh, wait. Lunch one day, come to Alabama and have some gator tail, frog legs, and margarita sometime. Okay, yeah. Okay, I got you. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off before I went and seen that. Yeah, definitely, dude. I'll be in Alabama in April, brother. I will be in Gulf Shores. Peace out. See ya.